medical response, Springfield and Greenfield employees may go on strike this Sunday. Thanks for joining us for Western Mass News at 10 on this Tuesday. I'm Abby Carnevale. That announcement made at a press conference this afternoon, and Western Mass News reporter Addie Patterson joins us live with the proposal AMR is offering their workers. Addie?
Abby, Teamster Local 404 represents local AMR EMTs and paramedics. They tell Western Mass News Sunday's potential strike is a last resort.
I don't think that there's an avenue that hasn't been explored to keep this from going to a strike.
On Tuesday, AMR held a press conference after Teamsters Local 404 announced they intend to go on strike this Sunday.
We are not negotiating over a service that can be paused or delayed. Lives are at stake here.
AMR claiming their proposal to workers goes beyond expectations, providing substantial improvements well above what is commonly seen in the workforce. The proposal includes an average 35% overall pay increase over 4 years, with an average of 25% of that increase effective immediately upon contract signing. Higher entry-level pay for EMTs and paramedics raised by approximately 20%. A $5,000 ratification bonus for full-time employees and a $1,500 bonus for part-time employees upon contract signing. Fully employer-paid health benefits for employee premiums and 80% employer-paid for family plans. Enhanced retirement benefits including a dollar-for-dollar 401k matching up to 4%. And double time and a half for holidays.
These terms reflect our commitment to supporting our EMTs and paramedics and ensuring their compensation and benefits align with the critical roles they perform.
The union representative for AMR, Brian Donovan, claiming that the company never presented these negotiations to Teamsters and has not communicated with the union since the strike was authorized.
Many times the company tried to present to me that they knew what the employees wanted, but yet I was the one who took the time to have meeting after meeting after meeting to gain those proposals to present to the company so that we could in fact speak about some of the things that we would like to see changed.
Regional Director for AMR, Patrick Leonardo, tells us he's hopeful both sides will be able to agree on negotiations and avoid Sunday's strike.
We remain optimistic that ongoing discussions will lead to an agreeable outcome that simultaneously supports our employees and ensures that residents continue to receive the essential care they rely on from AMR.
However, Teamsters says unless the company is willing to communicate and continue negotiations, Sunday's walkout will happen.
If the strike comes about on Sunday afternoon, you can pretty much point the finger at AMR and say that they put these people on the street.
Teamsters tells Western Mass News if negotiations are unable to move forward, workers will begin to strike Sunday at 5 p.m. Reporting live in studio, Addie Patterson for Western Mass News.